Good morning. Welcome to the BlackUSA.News morning show. We're here with the one and only Neil Dubo of Dubo Law. Good morning,
Morning,
Neil.
Donnie.
What have you been up to?
It's been a while, my friend. It's been a while. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while. I don't know, you look revived. A lot of people have been COVID weary. You look like you've been navigating it well.
I got nothing to complain about, my friend. We moved offices back in February, so we had that going on, and otherwise we're continuing to grow our personal injury practice. The courts are starting to open back up. People are starting to get back out on the roads. Life is slowly starting to creep back to normal. Kids are back in school, so just feel blessed, right?
Did
Could
you take the
complain,
shot?
but focus on the positive.
Did you take the shot?
I did. I got Moderna. I was fully vaccinated by beginning of April. Had some very minor side effects after the second shot, and otherwise felt fine.
So you weren't a anti-vaxxer.
No. But I will say, I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, right? I made the decision for myself and that I was going to do this, but I also don't fault people who have gone the other direction. I think everybody has to make whatever decision they decide is right for themselves. Not for me to decide for anybody else.
When they said that you would have travel complications without the shot, that was enough to convince me. I don't want any static when I go to the airport. I'm a black man in America. I don't give the police any additional reasons to come messing with me.
That's a smart thing. I'll tell you, the one thing I think was good is the CDC just announced yesterday that people are no longer required to wear masks or socially distance if they've been vaccinated. I think that was right. I think a lot of people were on the fence about getting the vaccine, but what would have pushed them over to do it was that the incentive of getting back to normal and being able to live their normal lives. And I think when the CDC was telling people, even if you get the shots, you still have to do all these other things, people were going, well, I'm out, right? Like, what's the benefit? Why would I do this? Why would I take the risk if nothing really changes? And I think it's important that people, if they're inclined to get the shot or they're on the fence, that they know there's a benefit and an incentive to do it, meaning you can go back to normal.
Okay, you finished?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was on, I was not going to take it, but again, for me, I don't want any static when I get to an airport. I don't want any static going to another country. And I damn sure don't want any static coming back to America.
Right.
So where's the new office?
We are now up in Timonium. So I'm no longer the Pikesville lawyer. We moved up to a really nice office building right off of 83. Gives us great access to the city, county, so we can continue to provide all the services in a location that's really reachable for people. We got a nice office space. There's plenty of parking, free parking for people. Although, people right now, a lot of it's still being done remotely. Even our new client consultations, most people don't feel comfortable coming in. And we accommodate however people want to do it. You want to do Zoom, you want to do over the phone, you want to come in person. We have a conference room. We maintain social distancing. We wear masks when people come into our office. My prime responsibility as an employer is to my employees and my clients and customers to make sure they're safe. So whatever it is that they need in order to feel safe, that's what I'm going to do. But my employees and I have all been fully vaccinated. So we can offer that as well. And like I say, the courts are opening back up. I got trial on Monday. I got a jury trial coming up the end of this month, and I got about 7 or 8 more scheduled for the rest of the year. So I miss being in a courtroom, Donnie. Though you can't take somebody out of their natural environment too long, right?
So this is what I want to ask you. Why the move from Pikesville to Timonium?
Where I was initially was always designed to be temporary. We had, I've been practicing almost 20 years, but my practice itself only opened in August of 2019. And the space that we were in was small. and not really designed. I didn't know how fast we were going to grow. So it was always designed to be a temporary space. And that was the reason for the move. I live in Towson, so I was looking for something a little closer to the house and in that Baltimore City, Baltimore County corridor. And the office space that I'm in now is nicer than the space that I was in before. It shows really well. It's attractive to clients. It looks good. We've had plenty of people come in and say, wow, this is a great space.
So this is what I wanted to ask you. Was it financially beneficial to move? Meaning, right now, we know that lumber, the cost of lumber has gone up.
Significantly.
Some real estate has gone up. At the same time, malls can't pay people to come there, or at least that's how it was a few months back. The whole real estate market was turned upside down. So was it to your benefit?
Yes. It's a good question. I started looking for office space back in March of 2020. And I actually went out and looked at about 3 or 4 spaces and was in the process of almost putting in an offer on one of them. And then COVID hit and everything shut down. And I said, you know what? I'm going to wait this out a little bit, because I think when we come out on the back end, it's going to be really favorable for people like me who are looking to lease space. I think most people are going to be on the other side of that. They're either looking to downsize or they're defaulting because businesses are going under, and landlords are going to be, falling over themselves to try and get people into spaces. And it's every one of these situations is all about leverage, right? And I was right. By waiting until it was around September, October when I got back into the market, there were a lot of spaces available and not too many people looking. And it really put me in the catbird seat, because I got to come in and say, look, here's my offer. If you're not going to take it, that's fine. I got plenty other options. I remember, Donnie, somebody gave me advice years ago. They said, never fall in love with anything that can't love you back. And I have used that philosophy both personally and professionally to my benefit. Offices are space.
Can you
right? A house is a house and an office is an office. If you can't meet my price point, I'll go find something else. I don't fall in love with things.
I'd have to think about that, Neil. It's a little early in the morning. You don't fall in love with things. Well, I heard it put this way: love people, use things. Don't use people to love things. Kind of a different spin.
Yeah, I mean, look, the classic example is you go look at a car and you go, oh my God, I have to have this car, right? That car is perfect. And then you end up overpaying for it because you've made an emotional decision rather than a business decision.
I got you. Stay right there. Now, I can relate it to Black mothers taking their children into the supermarket. Don't look at nothing. Don't ask for nothing. Matter of fact, just close your eyes. The comedian did a much better job than Lavelle.
Right.
He said, well, if I close my eyes, don't that mean I'm gonna walk into something? I said, shut up, Lavelle. Okay. So it was to your advantage to move to Timonium, and the price met your price point. But what I'm asking, did you find rental spaces? Presumably this is a rental space?
Yes.
Has rental space gone through the roof? Also, why not buy? Considering what you pay for rent, why not buy it?
I'll tell you why. Because my law firm is growing, and I don't know what it's going to look like 3 years from now. And if I buy something, I'm either going to have to buy more space than I need, or I'm going to buy something that I'm going to end up outgrowing. And so what I'm basically doing is, by leasing, I'm buying myself time to see what happens over the next 3 to 5 years, because things are taking off, Donnie. We are taking in more cases each month. Each month is better than the month before. I started with 1 employee. I have 2. I'm in the process of potentially interviewing and hiring another attorney to join the staff. Like, things are taking off. And by leasing space for 3 years, it puts me in a place where I'm like, you know what? I can reevaluate then, and then I'll have a much better idea of, if I want to buy, what my space looks like, how much space I need. It was the smarter decision, at least the way I looked at it.
And you couldn't have done that at the previous office in Pikesville?
No, that space was smaller. It's about half the size of where I'm at now. So this is like a step along in the process, right? It's one of those, multi-step things for small businesses that are growing.
And the lesson is don't leap, just step.
Yeah, I will tell you, I do think there is such a thing as growing too fast for businesses. I think, we've been trying, and what's that?
You're damn right. I know a church out Old Court Road. They had a big old church, and they built another one on the other side of the road and ended up selling it because what they thought they had, they didn't have. They doubled it. Right now, churches, they're begging for people to come. So the overhead, none of that stuff stops because of COVID. The mortgage, the gas, electric, the lights, and the heat. Some of these old churches, you're talking about heating a structure that's over 100 years old. The insulation is poor. There's a big church on the corner north in St. Paul. So I'm thinking the same thing for, whether, even small rental space. It's got to make sense. It can't put you out of the game with expenses like
two things I've learned about running a small business, and anybody who's listening or watching who's run a small business, there's a fraternity among people if you've either done it or you haven't. And if you've never owned your own business and run your own business, you don't truly understand what that experience is like. And anybody who has is in the club, right? Like it's just different. There's no getting away from it, right? You don't get to take vacations. You don't get weekends and nights. Everything is about your business 24/7 all the time. And that's not a complaint, by the way. I signed up for that.
Including your family.
Including your family.
They are joined at the hip with the business, and we hope that they like us, support us. Yep. We don't want for them to get in the way. So if you're not going to help us, at least don't get in the way.
That's right.
Am I preaching to the choir?
100%. 100%. And it's been, even to this point, it's been a very interesting journey, but you learn things along the way. So that point about not growing too fast is a big one. The other one that I have learned is you hire before the need arises. You get out in front of hiring decisions. It'll cost you a little more money up front. I think too many businesses hire after the need has already come up, and it's too late, right? You're already you're backlogged, and things don't move as they should. And that's one of the reasons why I'm looking at potentially bringing in another attorney. Is I want to get out in front of it and make sure that we are at all times fully set up to provide 100% of the services to all our clients. We pride ourselves on being client centered. I think too many law firms out there. The lawyer's involved at the beginning when the client signs the retainers, and then the lawyer disappears until trial. And that is not how we operate. You get me. It's my name on the door.
Family. Tell me, and not to get personal, but I grew up in a family business. I'm finishing up my second book now, I Am Black Wall Street. And I talked briefly in there about answering the phone at 6 years old. Good evening, Glover's Funeral Chapel. May I help you? Tell me about your children. Do they have a role to play in the family business, being I don't know, opening mail, answering phones, carrying your briefcase, shining your shoes? Do they have to play a role in the family business?
Yes, although it's interesting you say that, Donnie. At this point, their roles are limited. My kids are 9 and 7, 2 girls, and I have made a concerted effort to include them where possible. So obviously, they're not going to court and handling depositions and trying cases, but some of my marketing. So for example, I now have a newsletter, an email newsletter, which I send out monthly. Um, right. And occasionally I have to pick photos for the newsletter, something eye-catching, right? Last night I was in the process of working on the draft for our next installment of the newsletter, and I bring the kids in. I say, hey, girls, which photos you think work better here? Right? They love it. They love being involved. I think, to your point about it being a family business, I think you set yourself up to fail when you separate your family from what it is that you're doing. If you're asking them to sacrifice, and they do, you have to make sure they have skin in the game and they understand they're a part of it.
Diane Bell taught me that. Diane Bell she was my boss at the Empowerment Zone. She told me early on, good morning, June. Good morning, Brenda. Andy over in Hungary, Brenda Bailey. Diane Bell told me early on, make your wife, when I was married at the time, make your wife, make your children a part of the business. I'll never forget it. And yep. I really get it now, just on what, you articulated it well. Because you don't want it to be, this is mine, and y'all stay over there. And I don't know how the other scenario works where can a family be too involved in your business?
I mean, probably. I'm lucky I don't have that problem right now. If you do it the other way, if you isolate your family and they're not involved, right?
Yeah, problem.
Then the resentment starts to creep in because they're making sacrifices, but they're not seeing the rewards. And I got to tell you, I think too many people assume that the rewards are purely financial. That is not how most people look at things, right? The reward to them is the success of the business. The financial part comes along with that, but the success of the business is what the sacrifices are for. They have to feel like they're involved. And then I'll give you an example with my wife. She's a project manager, right? She spends all day managing projects and she's a wizard with Excel spreadsheets. I don't know how to do an Excel spreadsheet for all the money in the world. She helps me set up all my spreadsheets with profit and loss stuff, tracking cases, tracking average settlements, making sure that, we know exactly at any given point where our finances are for the business. She helps me with all of that. She has skin in the game.
Not only that, I mean, number one, I find women to be much smarter.
Oh, in my case, that's true.
Much more helpful than and not to say that men can't be helpful. I'm not saying that, but I just find in the work that I get to do, women have been very, very helpful. Just on even just in figuring stuff out, like you said, the spreadsheet. And it's okay to ask for help. Some of us don't want to ask for help.
I remember when I first had the conversation with her about it, right before we started the practice. And she was really busy at work and I felt like it might be an imposition. And you should have seen the smile on her face just from me asking the question. She jumped at it. She wanted to be involved, right? She was enthusiastic.
What made you ask her?
Because I knew I didn't know how to do it. And I knew it was her skill set, and I knew she did it a lot better than I did.
But you asked her. You could have been ignorant and went and asked somebody else and came back home. Oh, you won't believe this, dear. I was talking to so-and-so to try to do this on something that's in her bailiwick, something that's in her quiver.
Yep.
You would have lost points.
100%.
You might have got put out.
Well, so I would have lost points, and then what would have happened was the resentment would have started because then not only would I not have come to her, then it's Neil's working weekends and Neil's working nights, and what am I? How is this benefiting me? Right? He's not involving me in anything. He's not telling me what's going on. This is his thing, and now I have to sacrifice our time as a family for this thing that he's isolated us from. That's where the resentment comes from.
You ought to consider a webinar. It may be simple to some, but family and business, how the two can coexist, Hey, listen, I got a friend of mine. He's a lawyer. You may know him. You know this guy here?
Hey.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
J. Wyndal Gordon, I want you to meet Neil Dubo of Dubo Law.
Hey, Neil, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Great.
Now, Neil Dubo, this is our nationally recognized warrior lawyer. Now, Neil just moved from Pikesville to Timonium, J. Wyndal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you know something about Baltimore County, don't you?
Yeah, I do know something about Baltimore County. Indeed, I do. I know that the police officers are off the chain. I know that they receive cover and concealment by the state's attorney, Scott Schellenberger. And I know that an election year is coming up and Scott Schellenberger needs to be replaced. I know.
So it's funny.
Are you running for state's attorney?
Am I running for state's attorney? No, but it's funny.
Okay.
You're not the first person I've heard in the last 48 hours to say that.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a groundswell, I think, in Baltimore County to have somebody run against him.
Well, I think Robbie Leonard.
Yep, I know Robbie.
Is very he's endearing to me as he might be someone who can who's willing to take him on, and I will aid and abet anyone who wants to take on Scott.
Robbie is not just a personal friend. Robbie is an attorney who I have occasionally worked with professionally. He ran. I'm sure you know his background. He ran twice for delegate seat in Baltimore County, and came up just slightly short both times. But a tremendously talented guy, and I think the state's attorney's position may very well be suited to somebody like him.
Well, anybody but Schellenberger is where I am right now. And Robbie, he's got my attention. So I need to find out some more about him. But as far as I know, he's my guy.
Well, I'll tell you what, Jay Wyndal, this may have happened at a fortuitous time, because if you want to learn more about him or set up a meeting, I can text him in 5 minutes and get that set up.
Well, I don't think I need to set up a meeting. I'm gonna watch him move. I'm gonna watch his moves.
Fair enough.
And but I like what I'm seeing so far. I like that when I start talking about Schellenberger, he's in my amen corner. So I appreciate that, because it lets me know that what Schellenberger has been doing over the years is not. I'm not the only person who sees it, and that others see it, and it's time for change. These guys from the 80s and 90s and prosecute today with the same mentality of the 80s and 90s. It's time to go. Prosecuting is changing. The practice of law is changing. Policing is changing. Everything is changing, and these dinosaurs don't want to change. So if they don't want to change, then they need to retire. And I'm being polite.
Hey, Jay Wyndal, didn't you have a case out there in Baltimore County where the elderly black lady got hip tossed in a judo flip?
Rena Mellison. As a matter of fact, that is absolutely correct. And Scott Schellenberger did not prosecute either one of those officers, either the one that hip tossed Rena Mellison or the one that sprayed her 9-year-old grandchildren and failed to render aid. Indeed, they laughed about her being sprayed with the OC spray and did not render aid. So Scott Schellenberger has been missing in action on a number of occasions, and I can just go through a laundry list. I get calls every day about how Baltimore County police are either harassing, beating, maiming, and these cases, are some of the most underreported cases because people are afraid to report them. Because if you report the cases early, the prosecutor's office is going to come down on you with its large ass and try to stomp you out and beat you into submission, so you won't even think about reporting it. But what they've been doing in Baltimore County, man, it is terrible.
But also, it becomes a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. People partially don't report because they know it's not going to get prosecuted, so
True.
They see all downside, no upside to reporting something.
Right. So
they're just going to paint a target on their back, and they're not going to get justice. Right.
And meanwhile, these people are unleashed on our communities. And, not every police encounter that's bad results in death. So we only really hear about the ones that result in death because you just can't hide death.
I'm so glad to hear you say that. I have been singing this song now for months because everybody was so focused on the George Floyd thing, as they should be.
They need to be focused on Corinne Gaines, and I need some assistance. We're trying to build a groundswell on that because her killer still works on the police force. He has not been criminally prosecuted. He has not been administrative. A jury found that he was liable for her death, violated her constitutional rights, and wrongfully killed her. Yet he still maintains his salary, his pension, still receiving promotions. And I don't even think he even lives in Baltimore County, but he has completely gotten away with murder, and he's still out in our community.
And Jay Wyndal, it's even worse than that. If I'm thinking of the right case, and I'm pretty sure that I am, that right after the jury awarded damages to the family, the presiding judge reversed it.
Yeah, that's our case.
On remitted, basically the judge after the fact saying, I find there was not a legal basis for the verdict, and basically just got rid of the entire amount of the judgment. And then the Court of Special Appeals recently affirmed that. So as of right now,
they reinstated the judgment.
They have nothing. The forget the criminal justice. They didn't even get civil justice.
No, they reinstated the judgment. We got his decision overturned on appeal.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, because interestingly enough, Judge Mickey Norman was the judge. Their defense was qualified immunity. They raised it during the motion to dismiss phase, and that's right after we filed the complaint. It was denied by Mickey Norman. They raised it again after discovery completed in summary judgment. It was denied by Mickey Norman. They raised it for the third time after we completed all the evidence in the case, and it was denied by Mickey Norman. The jury comes back with a verdict, and Mickey Norman said, "Oh, qualified immunity applies here. This case should have never gone this far. It should have never gone to the jury." But that's after we won. And when we won, we could see his face. He looked like he turned a beet red when we won. So we knew something was going to be up. But nonetheless, we're still in this fight. The Court of Special Appeals, as I said, reinstated the verdicts, but they returned the case. They remanded it to him to adjust it in terms of remitted. So when you talk about remitted, and when to you, Donnie Glover, we're talking about just adjusting the amount of the verdict. So the same judge that took the verdict away now has the discretion to adjust the verdict to whatever he determines justice is. And this is the same judge who originally tried to take it away. So this fight is, sometimes.
Yeah, because I mean, if he even reduces it by $1, it's just going to go right up back on appeal again.
Well, it wouldn't go right on appeal for $1, but
he's gonna. He'll probably make a reduction.
Substantial. He's retired now, so he is. So he doesn't have, he could do whatever he wants, and it'll leave us holding the bag. But whether he rules in our favor is going to be appealed by the county. If he rules against us, it's going to be appealed by us. So the appellate process is still going to be ongoing. And August 1st of 2016 marks the 5th year of her death. So, this case is dragged on long enough. I think certain people need to, Schellenberger and friends, they really made a mess of it. So I think Schellenberger needs to go.
Jay Wyndal, you have your cape on. It looks like you're about to go get some work done.
In terms of my suit?
I mean, normally you got to go to court today?
I do. I have to go to Frederick County.
Oh, that's where I got to be Monday.
Oh, yeah. Yep. On my way out there. So good. I'm glad y'all are talking about this. I'm glad the focus is now on Baltimore County, because we spend so much time talking about Baltimore City, and all kind of hell is breaking loose over there in the county. So I'm glad that we're putting the focus out there, because they do everything, so quietly that all we end up doing is reacting to what they've done instead of addressing it proactively. So here, Donnie, thank you for your platform so that we can raise these issues proactively and let Baltimore County know that people are watching. And not just local people, but national people, because that's a part of the campaign that we work.
Do you think this is why Johnny Olszewski chose not to run for governor this year, or in 2022?
Well, he had a hard time winning that county executive seat the first go round. I think he won by 17 votes, and it was primarily because of the push of the African American community on the west side of Baltimore County. And I just feel like Baltimore County has stood for him, and he really needs to stand for us. The African American community in Baltimore County has really come to go to bat for him, and he really needs to go to bat for us. And he's done some decent things, and I am impressed by the fact that he did hire James Benjamin to be his county attorney. So he's done some decent things working with law and police reform. But we have issues that are still in the midst that have not been addressed, and we need to have them addressed. The county really needs to show some responsibility for what Royce Ruby has done to the families.
So Neil, just for the sake of promotion, what type of law do you practice?
Our firm does exclusively personal injury and malpractice, both medical and any other type of professional malpractice. I have a niche in legal malpractice. They don't come up very often, but if anybody thinks they have a claim against an attorney who mishandled a case, that's a specific area of expertise for me. But the overwhelming majority of our cases are personal injury, car accident, slip and fall, and cases of that nature.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you deal with coroner malpractice? Coroner malpractice. Is it possible that the coroner in Baltimore City has been malpracticing since he got there? Because, again, his decisions seem to be made along the racial lines. Like, you probably didn't know him, Robert Lee Clay. Robert Lee Clay, they signed his death certificate suicide. This is a black man, very comfortable with the streets, with a pocket full of money, and they said he shot himself. The only thing is he was right-handed, and the gun went in on the left side. Mm-hmm. Sean Suter, they raised serious questions about Sean Suter, and I still don't believe the man committed suicide, even though they keep pushing this rumor. But recently, the Baltimore coroner testified out there in George Floyd, didn't he?
Yep. David Fowler.
And
the South African David Fowler, yes, there were some questions.
Yeah, there were some questions raised about his testimony.
Neil, you're from South Africa.
I am.
So was David Fowler.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Raised during apartheid. Raised up in apartheid. What is this?
Uh-oh.
Don't lump me in with that guy.
Well, we're not surprised, given his background.
Yeah, his methodologies were, to be generous, highly questionable. And if anything good came out of him testifying in that case, is there's now a spotlight on some of the prior testimony that he's given and work that he has done to kind of retroactively go back and take a look at it, which I think, but for the George Floyd case and his testifying, wouldn't have happened. Mm-hmm. So add that to one of the benefits of that trial.
Yeah, I think that was very important because I've been dealing with David Fowler for many years in the past. In fact, Anthony Anderson, Donnie, I sat down and had discussions with David Fowler about that case. And that's when he explained to me that he was from South Africa. So that's how I know it, because he told me himself. And just a whole lot of things that he's done in the past, where he found causes of death undetermined, or like you said, suicide, mm-hmm. in situations where we know these individuals. And these individuals did not have any of the symptoms that of even depression. So how do you get to suicide? And so, everything that he's touched should be questioned. And they should be going back into the annals of his reports to find out whether or not his conclusions are meet the standard of care in our.
But I think one of the causes of frustration among a lot of people, certainly present company very much included, is that these are all good things, but none of it would be happening but for him testifying in the Floyd case. In other words, why did it take that to raise these issues when people like Jay Wyndal have known for a while? Why is it that we finally get a conviction of a police officer in the death of an African American victim, but because they happen to be video evidence, right? Like, mm-hmm. Why is it taking these things to generate the results that we all know and understand intuitively are what needs to happen?
Right.
I think there's an additional frustration there.
Racism.
Right. That's what I was going to say. That's exactly what I was going to say. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, but
I gotta ask you, Neil, with you being from South Africa, And considering we're in the era of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, so on and so forth, Trayvon Martin, considering that reparations is now a bona fide issue in front of the country, do you think it is time for a Truth and Reconciliation Commission in the United States?
So it's funny, Donnie, when you said the word reparation, the first term that jumped in my head in getting ready to answer your question was Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Because I think there is legitimate benefit, and I think the way South Africa did it was right. They gave immunity to people who otherwise weren't entitled to immunity because they made the calculation that getting the truth out and having a full accountability was more important than after the fact punishment. And now people can debate that, right? There are arguments to be made both ways on that. But I think there's a lot to be said about at least in theory, the idea that to have a true accounting and accountability, you need something akin to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, because otherwise you're never really going to truly move forward.
And Jay Wyndal, if we do a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, I'm not looking just to lock up a bunch of white people. There's some black people that have been complicit in the oppression of black people in this country. I'm learning, for instance, that the United Negro College Fund has gotten its first black president. That's just criminal.
Is that right? Is that right?
That's just criminal. Yes.
Look, man. Look, I mean, it's so much work to be done in terms of truth and reconciliation. I'm glad that the conversation is being broached, and I don't think there's not too many African Americans that exist who want to lock up every white person, or who even want revenge for what has happened to them in the past. A lot of us just want to be treated fairly. That's it. We just want fair opportunities. You know, we always wonder why they don't want to compete with us. Like, what is it about us that you don't want to compete? Why don't you want to compete? Isn't American about competition? Why do you have to have an advantage? Put everybody in the same places and let them compete. We will have a much better society and a much better America when people are treated fairly, have same access or equitable or equal accesses to the same opportunities, and we all compete. Like the ideologies say, that's supposed to be what this country is built upon, competition. That's plain, but you don't want to have competition where someone gets a 400-year head start. But even despite the 400-year head start, I think we've been very competitive, okay? Because I don't know anybody who got a 400-year head start on us and ended up being the president of us, except the person in charge of the United Negro College Fund, I guess. God damn, I didn't know that. But anyway, I just feel like you know, once America matures and understands that we are greater than the sums of our parts, understands that we are a tossed salad, and when you have a tossed salad, you have I know I see you looking. You have lettuce, you have tomatoes. The lettuce aren't trying to go around saying they're tomatoes or that we're all equal, that we're all the same. A lettuce is not the same as a tomato. A lettuce is not the same as tomato. Tomato is not the same as cucumber, but you put them all together, you make a great salad. America is a great salad. And so we shouldn't try to be something we're not. We should be able to coexist in our own individualities and be unified at the same time for a delicious dish that we can serve up to the world.
I can add, Jay Wyndal, I want to answer your question. I mean, I think it was somewhat rhetorical because I think you know the answer anyway. Mm-hmm. The question is, why can't we be this country? Well, the answer is, for that same 400 years, a whole bunch of people got a massive advantage of not having to compete against other people, and they kind of like that.
Well,
and now you put them in a position where you want to institute sort of fundamental fairness, and they go, well, that's not the same position I was in before. I preferred it the first way. So you're always going to get pushback, right? Obviously, what you're describing is fair and reasonable and equitable. There's just a big portion, and now that portion is getting smaller and smaller, which is a good thing. But there's always going to be some people who go, I don't want that competitiveness. I liked it the way it was, where I didn't have to compete.
Yeah.
Neil, I want to present to you something I've shared on the show for the past couple of weeks. A couple of Sunday mornings ago, now I live in Sandtown. It's majority black neighborhood. We got our challenges. We have our beauty. I go out in the alley, and it's a white lady.
You told me this story.
You know, I chase everybody out the alley. She's kneeling down, eating her meal in the middle of the alley. Black people don't go in the alley, daytime or nighttime. And she calls me the effing N-word. She said, "Is this your alley?" And I said, "Well, by golly, yes, it is. And you need to get your hind parts out of here." And I said, "Okay, stay right there." And then I turned around and went in the house. And that's the little 50 fake out move. Like, you know, he get ready to go call the police. Well, no, I'm not, because you don't want to call the police for something like that. Long story short, if a black person goes in an alley 7 blocks to the east of here, they will be locked up pronto. So we're dealing with, what do I think when it comes to a 400-year advantage? Or I see the same lady standing on my corner panhandling. That's the dichotomy of America and privilege. Hey, listen, I don't want to see anybody eating out the alley, eating out bags. But it's reframed. If it were black people, or they a dope fiend, they a junkie. Or it's a white lady in the alley, oh, mental illness. Oh, opioid addiction. That's America. And she called me the effing N-word on a Sunday morning. It's shameful. She lucky I ain't let that German Shepherd out back on her.
She is
okay.
lucky.
Fine, Neil. You know what are those dogs you got in South Africa? What's those big dogs?
Malinois or something. I don't know.
There was a video, Donnie. There was a video, and Jay Wyndal, I'm sure you saw this too. And what you're right. I mean, it goes without saying that you're right, that if the same thing had happened in reverse, the outcome would have been very different. There was a video that came out, I think it was right before or after the George Floyd verdict, of a group of black kids walking through a suburban neighborhood. I don't even remember where it was. And one of the residents in the neighborhood came out and accosted the young African-American gentleman and basically said, get the hell out of my neighborhood. And the video, Jay Wyndal, you know which video I'm talking about? Did you see it?
The one in North Carolina.
Is that where it was?
Military officer. I think it was.
That's it. That's the one. That's the one.
Officer, yeah.
And that to me,
the kid was like, "I live here."
Right. But the point that was being made, and this goes back to the issue about competition. I think this all ties together. I think it's all part of one bigger thing, which is you don't belong here. Mm-hmm. Right? You are not one of us, is what that guy in that neighborhood was saying. And that there are people like that out there. They exist, and they're the reason why, young African American men generally, but people, women, men, everybody feel unsafe. Mm-hmm. Because they don't feel like everybody else has their back. And it's not just limited to the police, right? The police obviously have a big part of it. They carry guns. They're in charge of law enforcement. They hold a higher responsibility. But to me, that video really resonated, because what that guy was saying was, you don't belong here. You're not me. You're not the same as me. And I want you out. And it was a microcosm of how he feels about the country. I guarantee it. He wasn't just talking about his neighborhood.
Yeah.
When I was a little boy, I remember watching the Today Show. It was a dreadlock lawyer walking the streets of California, and he walked wherever he wanted, but he was a lawyer, but he looked like a hooligan. And they arrested him so many times, but each time he got out because he was able to articulate his cause. So listen, we only have a few minutes, but Jay Wyndal, you were about to chime in. I see you pulling your sword out.
Oh no, I had a thought, but it fled, so I can't even remember what I was going to say.
Okay, well, let me get down to the 600-pound gorilla in the room. Her name is Isabel Cumming. Do you know about Isabel, Neil?
I do not.
Oh my God, she's the Inspector General.
I can't believe you're giving her more of your time. You still talking about her?
No, I was going to talk about Maryland and her, has Marilyn Mosby set a new precedent? Not prosecuting low-level crime, because I'm seeing district attorneys and state's attorneys from around the country follow suit. Is this the new trend? Has she started a new trend like Jay-Z?
Well, I tend to hope so, because so many times I've had college students, people with security clearances arrested for, because they had over 10 grams, maybe they had 12 grams, maybe they had 13, 15 grams of marijuana. You got to answer to that in court. You know what I mean? And so for Marilyn Mosby to say, you know what, I'm not going to prosecute these low-level offenses because we got all these murders and we need to divert some of our resources to address some of this violence in our city. So then addressing someone like a Jay Wyndal, and I don't smoke anything, but just to use myself as an example, because I don't want to point the finger at anybody else who may perhaps have, 11 grams worth of marijuana, and he's the town lawyer. You know what I mean? And you're going to haul him into court and have him prosecuted for that? I mean, what does society gain from that?
I'll actually go, that's obviously right, but I'll go a step further. And this goes back to the George Floyd thing. And Donnie, I don't know whether this has come up on your show. I think fundamentally you can even take a step removed from the prosecuting. There's a law enforcement part of that too. To me, the biggest issue of the George Floyd case, separate and apart from what the officer did, why is he getting arrested and detained for allegedly passing a $20 bill? Why is that happening? Right? If that was me, they'd issue me a citation and tell me when to show up to court, and I'd be on my merry way. Why are these minor infractions resulting in interactions between police officers and people that then are allowed to escalate?
Right. Deadly interactions at that.
Correct.
And we always have to be concerned about minor infractions resulting in deadly interactions. In fact, we have to have these conversations with our young people all the time.
The guy was a Garner in New York.
Mm-hmm.
It was untaxed cigarettes. I mean, these are non-violent, victimless crimes,
right, that
even if you think that there should be accountability, like I said, you issue a citation, there's no need to detain, there's no need to arrest. We need to reimagine how the police interact with people so that if you just cut it off at the pass, you don't allow these escalations that lead to violence.
Drop the mic right there. That was perfect. I couldn't have said it any better. That was perfect.
Okay. So as we move forward, I wanted to ask you about the future when it comes to the next state's attorney's race. Do you think there's anyone out there, Jay Wyndal, that can effectively challenge Marilyn Mosby? Because Fox News has put a bullseye, and then she turned around and pimp slapped him back by going to the FCC on Fox News. Now, my brother asked me about Fox News yesterday, and I couldn't believe that he looked at them as a legitimate news agency. Well, let me ask you, are they a legitimate news agency when they bring up Thiru Vignaraja, a.k.a. Freak Nasty, who was hanging out on Greenmount while he was running for mayor buying prostitutes?
So all the experts, it seems like most of the experts that they present always have some type of moral compromise or moral challenge, from Ed Norris to Thiru Vignaraja, and they hail these people as if we forgot that Ed Norris, say, is a convicted federal felon. We forgot that Thiru was selling government secrets for a piece of ass. We don't forget that stuff. But then you want to put him in front of us and say that he has the character and the temperament to head one of our state agencies, such as the state's attorney's office. And I just thoroughly disagree. Fox has done way too much. It's overkill. They're overzealous, and they need to be reined in. And although they do have a good spin cycle over there with regard to how they defended against Marilyn Mosby's FCC challenge, nonetheless, they feel the burn of it. They feel the sting of it. Well, they might put on like they don't, but they do, because they got to deal with that. And even if they had the chairman or a past chairman come on and support their position, it needs to be investigated, because the cycle of the Marilyn Mosby hate train is ad nauseum. And what it really does, it has the opposite effect. It's really counterproductive because it fortifies a base. Like me, I wasn't even paying attention, but now I see her on TV every day for the same old crap. I'm like, I'm tired of this. Like, let me see what I can do to help Marilyn Mosby, because it's sickening at this point. So I think that it's all counterproductive.
I gotta tell you something. I thank God for Fox TV.
Mm-hmm.
In the election last year, they were doing, and I believe my numbers, they were doing about 22 hours of news a week. Fox, where 11 and 13, and Channel 2 were doing like 11 and 13 hours of news every week. And the problem is that means Fox is on and they're repeating stuff in the loop. And that's why it's so in the forefront of people's mind. But they made, I start Channel 13 now as a 4 a.m. broadcast. And they now come on at 4 p.m. That's how Fox was killing them. They were out there when nobody else was out there. So now the other news outlets have had to increase their hours of news coverage. Also, to their credit, Fox has been bringing up issues that the others have totally ignored. Like a student at Augusta Savage Mills being funded for 5 years, although he was locked up. Or a student at Augusta Fells with a 0.13 GPA. No other news outlet is covering that. So as bad as they are, and they are the devil, they have pushed the envelope on issues no one else has addressed.
True. So I wouldn't say do away with Fox News, but I think that as it relates to the Marilyn Mosby thing, there's certain things, there's a such thing as overkill. And I think that's what we've seen, but I'm a First Amendment proponent. So I don't feel like, news should necessarily be curtailed. And I guess what I'm saying is I don't like it. And if it violates the FCC rules and regulations, let's find out whether or not that it did. If it doesn't, keep on doing what you're doing. But I think it's a bit much. It's become ad nauseum, quite frankly.
I'll tell you, to chime in on the Fox thing, the thing that I loved more than anything was in the lead up to the 2020 election, there were all these stories about Trump knew he was going to lose. And his plan was that he was going to run up the score on election day because all these Republican states didn't allow for the mail-in ballots to be counted early. And then he was going to go out on election night with the lead, right, and just declare victory and play defense. That was the strategy. That was the plan. And there was one thing that messed that up, and that was Fox News calling Arizona before any other network did, right? And they probably did it too soon. Or they ended up being right, but they probably did it too soon. And it screwed up everything. It basically caused Trump's entire plan to fall apart. And the fact that that came from Fox News has been, I cannot tell you how much I enjoyed that.
So, yeah. So, all the news outlets, I think we need them. When I call them, they come. And so I do appreciate that. But like anything else, I have my complaints. I have my complaints with anybody's office or news agency or whatever. But they're not all bad. But, some things do get bad. And in certain instances, they deserve to be addressed. But I'm a big First Amendment proponent.
Yeah, marketplace of ideas, right? Let the people sort it out.
Mm-hmm.
So how much time do we give Baltimore's new mayor before we start? Too soon, Jay Wyndal?
Say what? Before we start what? How much time? I can't hear you.
Raising questions about where the city.
It's a delay.
The city of Baltimore, the mayor. How the mayor doing?
I think he's doing. I don't have a problem with him, but quite frankly, I haven't been tracking him much lately. I know he's trying. I know he loves the city, and that's where I start. Where's your heart? Are you really for the city? And I know there's a lot of criticism he's facing these days, but we're dealing with tough times, unusual times, and I believe he's doing the best he can. And he doesn't mind self-correcting as well. When people bring things to his attention, he will try to do the right thing. So that's how I feel about it.
I think criticism of him at this point for things that happened prior to his taking office are very unfair. I think it's like trying to turn an oil tanker around with all the history that happened in the city before he came into office. And I think we need to give him time in fairness, a decent amount of time to try and get things turned around. I think it's too early to lay blame.
Well, let's talk about the other one. We got 4 or 5 minutes left. With after having touched and asked about Brandon, what about this governor?
He's on his way
How's
out.
the governor doing?
He's on his way out. As far as a Republican governor is concerned, I guess he's done as well as we would expect. And quite frankly, I think Maryland runs better with a Republican governor, to be honest with you. With a Republican governor, I know I'm probably in the minority who thinks this, but when you have a Democratic governor, the Democrats get scared. They won't challenge him. They won't, like, for instance, if you had a Democratic governor and he said, we don't want to settle the HBCU, I'm going to veto it, it would have remained vetoed. So I just like that balance of power. I think that if Michael Steele did come in and for some reason won the nomination of his party, I don't think that he will, but if there was a chance that he would, I just think Maryland runs better with a Republican governor. I do
Kelly
vote Democrat.
Kelly,
Huh? Say what?
they like Kelly Schultz. Michael Steele, shit, he been less visible than Ben Jealous in Maryland.
But if a Republican could show themselves worthy, just 5 more minutes. If a Republican could show themselves worthy, and I wouldn't vote Republican, I'm still going to vote Democrat. But I do understand how politics works, and if you have all power loaded up on one side, you're at the whim of the governor, because the elected officials are afraid to go against the king. If you shoot the king, you better not miss, and they all fear that. And Maryland it's run ragged when we're all one-sided in one color.
I'll tell you, I think Republican governors also prefer governing in states like Maryland, where they have Democratic legislatures, because it gives them plausible deniability if things aren't going well, right? I mean, the reality politically is if you have a favorable legislature and things aren't going well, there's nobody else to blame.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, Jay Wyndal, you threw in a Latin term on us lay people. Can you tell us what that Latin term was you used earlier?
It's making us nauseous. It's making us sick. I'm sick of it. Ad nauseum. Too much. Is that
ad nauseum?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to know if I go before a judge and I say you doing some ad nauseum stuff.
Yeah, it's too much.
I think Jay Wyndal and I both know if you go in front of a judge and you don't use Latin at least once, you're not really doing your job.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, let's do your final plug. Neil, plug your business, and thank you for coming on today. And shout out to your family, your wife, and your daughter for all they do.
I appreciate it, my friend, and let me give a shout out to them as well, because I would not be able to do even a fraction of what I do without them. They are my world, right? And they are. I would not be who I am and where I am today without them. So thank you for mentioning that. So again, Neil Dubofsky with Dubo Law. We are a personal injury and malpractice law firm, and I have to keep correcting myself. Located in Timonium, Maryland, not Pikesville, Maryland anymore. Providing personal injury and malpractice services in Baltimore County, Baltimore City, and across the state. Licensed in DC as well. We do everything on contingency fee basis. So there is no fee unless there's a recovery. Free consultations. If you think you have a claim or you're not sure, you give us a call, 443-275-6345. And if I think you have a case, we'll help you. And if I don't, I'll tell you that too. We pride ourselves in being very honest and upfront with clients. We're, as I told you before, very client-centered. You get me. I don't shove you off on paralegals and subordinates. You get your lawyer throughout the process, and that's something we pride ourselves on a lot. So again, Donnie, thanks again for having me on. I love being a sponsor of Be More News and the show, and looking forward to coming back on again soon.
Well, I'm glad you got a chance to meet Jay Wyndal. We are so proud of him. We've been knowing him a good 20 years, and we don't always agree. But he was born on my mama's birthday, so how can I fight him for so long?
Yes, indeed.
Plug your business, Jay.
Well, I don't really, my business, I'm Jay Wyndal Gordon, the Warrior Lawyer, located in Baltimore City, but I really want to talk about Corinne Gaines. I don't want us to forget about Corinne Gaines. We have a campaign going called She Is Speaking, and Corinne Gaines is really speaking to us. There needs to be a time where her matter can be addressed fully. and that justice can be attained by her family. And so that's what I'm fighting for. Jay Wyndal is great. The law office is wonderful, and we could always use more business. I'm Googleable. You can catch me on Facebook, wherever you. Just if you can't remember my name, just remember the Warrior Lawyer. But remember most, Corinne Gaines. She is speaking, and you'll be hearing more and more about her in the coming future. Because Schellenberger, we're coming for you. We're coming. And we're
for those that don't know,
and let me make this record clear. When I say I'm coming for you, I'm not coming to harm you. We're coming for you as an elected official. We want your spot. We want you replaced. We want you out of office. Royce Ruby, we want you terminated. I want you to live for 1,000 years. Schellenberger, I want you to live for 1,001. But I don't want you, State's Attorney of Baltimore County, and Royce Ruby, I don't want you to be a police officer anywhere in this world. Corinne Gaines. Remember Corinne Gaines. Thank you. She is speaking.
Thank you very much. This has been another edition of the Black USA News Morning Show. We'll be back tonight at 7 p.m. Thank you for all that you do, and have a beautiful day.
All right. Peace.